The state relies on legitimacy to endure, something which the royal family provides. But they're gone now. So why keep up this farce? Hey gamers, I am your host, Mr. Beast. And today I asked some guy to say Turkey is a great place to live while in the middle of Athens, in exchange for $1 million. Today I want to tell you about the Typhus system and how it permanently shifted the balance of power to the side of the Catholic kingdoms. This is the story of Sensuel, the man who would be Caliph. Our story starts, however, with this man, Al-Hakam II. He was the second Caliph of the Iberian Caliphate, and he was a man of science who ruled for 16 years. And one can say he ruled the Caliphate at the peak of its power. He secured a semi-permanent peace with the Catholic kingdoms to the north, and also consolidated the Umayyad hold over North Africa, even getting the Moroccan king to recognize the Caliphate's superiority. He ruled over his empire at the height of its power, essentially, in large part due to his father's actions, which we talked about in the last video. However, Al-Hakam was a humongous nerd. Given the immense wealth he had acquired, he seems to have preferred to delegate matters of his realm to his advisors, and instead, he just fucked off to the library to read some books like a virgin, unlike me, who fucks and is a top G. I mean, just last week a woman looked at me. I'm obviously perfect, but like all virgin losers who aren't top G, he died of being old. His reign lasted for 15 years, and he was succeeded by an 11-year-old boy, Hisham II. His story is much more interesting, as they saw the Caliphate's collapse at a relatively young age, and it collapsed due to this man, Almanzor, also known as Muhammad. Almanzor was born around 938 in the town of Torox. His family were Arabs who originated from modern-day Yemen and who came to Iberia and became landowners. And they traced their presence in Iberia all the way back to the first conquest by Tariq. Now, but I just want to say that over the course of the century since the first conquest, their standing gradually increased as they were appointed as the doctors, commanders, and married into the Moorish version of high nobility. Despite all of that, they were still pretty small landowners, modest people compared to like the vizier of the Caliphate or the Caliph himself. It's to this small, modest family that Almanzor is born. He was taken to Cordoba at a young age to learn law and the letters. This was to allow him to find a job in the administration of the realm. Why not a military job, I hear no one but Wikipedia ask? Well, because he was an Arab, and Arabs are big stinkies. Well, that's an oversimplification, but military roles were indeed limited to the Arab population. But anyway, let's continue the story. He was apparently an avid reader, and he was trained in how to interpret the Quran, the Muslim holy book, and he also had plans on becoming a judge. His mother was apparently called Buraya, whatever. She was an Arab, and his father, unpronounceable Abd Allah, was described as a kind and pious man who died in Tripoli after going on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Almanzor, when his father died, quit his studies, and he became a scribe for the Cordoban mosque. He stood out at a young age for his ambition and his talent, something which soon landed him the position of a clerk in the administration of the empire. Specifically, he worked for one of Caliph al-Hakam's most important advisors. Here he kept climbing the political ladder, until by 967, where he formed a long-lasting alliance with the mother of the future child Caliph, a woman by the name of Sub. Yet another reminder that I don't know how to read half of these names. She had a different name, which was Aurora, and that's how I'm going to refer to her from now on. I can't pronounce her Muslim name. Aurora was the spouse of the nerd Caliph al-Hakam II. She was originally from the kingdom of Pamplona, and she was brought over as a slave. She spent a long time as a concubine in Hakam's harem, Jesus, eventually becoming his favorite, so she was released upon their marriage. And she was actually the main individual in charge of running the caliphate, a state of affairs which essentially made her one of the most powerful women in the whole of the peninsula. And standing right next to her was Al-Mansur, who had become her most trusted advisor. When researching this part, honestly, this duo that formed reminded me a whole lot of Rasputin and the Tsar's wife. I can't actually remember her name. It's a woman who was left in charge of the country with a trusted advisor who came from God knows where. And also, people thought that the two were banging a lot. That's right, Al-Mansur and Aurora may have been fucking, but we can't say for certainty. But frankly, I do believe they were, as all women are obviously whores, but Al-Mansur is cool for getting laid. But we do know that they were allies. Aurora used Al-Mansur to fulfill her political goals, and he used her to gain more power and influence. By 1976, our Hakam the Nerdy Nerd died, and his son, Hisham, was put on the throne. Now here's the great thing about little boy kings. They're great puppets and great to kick out the door. Aurora by this time had given Al-Mansur control of the army and made him the Hajib of the Caliphate, which is basically the head of administrator. He was in charge of running the place, officially. There was an historian in the 13th century called of course it's called Murakushi, that described Al-Mansur's entire situation quite well. He said on the matter, "The stature of Ibn Amir continued to grow until he made the acquaintance of Sayyida Sub, the mother of Hisham, the son of al-Hakam. He took charge of her business affairs and managed her lands. In this way, he earned her appreciation. Things continued like this until the death of al-Hakam. Hisham was still young, and there was fear of trouble. Ibn Amir provided Sub with the security and calm necessary for her son to be able to reign. Ibn Amir was very competent, and circumstances worked in his favor. Sub made available the necessary funds, and he was able to win over the army. There then followed a train of circumstances that allowed him to rise even higher, until he became practically the sole manager of the affairs of state. It's hard to say how the alliance between Aurora and Al-Mansur truly worked, but I do believe that this alliance began with Aurora as a senior member, entirely using the man for her own gain, and likely due to Al-Mansur's own efforts, he would become the senior member, and by 978, he was effectively the one who ruled the country, not Aurora and certainly not Hisham. Al-Mansur's ambitions were to such an extent that he began to consolidate power on himself, and 20 years later, the alliance between these two fell apart, and the conflict began. The capital became the source of a bloody rivalry between Aurora's allies and Almanzor's faction. Aurora would repeatedly try to depose him by nominating Almanzor's rivals to what his position actually was or became, the Chamberlain. Almanzor's ambition was simply too great. By this point in time, and given Hisham's inability to rule, he was actively conspiring to make his position a hereditary one, and trying to gather allies so he could be named as the Caliph, although he would fail at that. Aurora's first move in this rivalry was to withdraw 80,000 dinars from the treasury. She did this in order to finance an uprising of nobles in the capital against him, and Almanzor's response, it was simply to petition the Vizier Council to transfer the huge sum of money to his own personal palace, something which worked, and Aurora's faction was forced to comply, giving up all the money without having used up even the majority of it. However, she did manage to start a small armed rebellion in the African territories under the Caliphate's control. But while the Maghreb rebellion continued past the year of 1997, Aurora's own rebellion was rapidly losing steam due to a lack of funding. By 1998, Aurora threw together her last-ditch efforts to oust Almanzor and secure power for herself and her son, an effort which failed, and Almanzor was able to secure power on himself, locking the Caliph and the Medina al-Zahira without any power over the kingdom. Her mother most likely suffered the same fate. Almanzor had now truly become the Emperor of Iberia. Aurora died just a year later at the turn of the millennium in 1999, and Almanzor, he ruled unopposed, with him serving as the actual head of the empire, while the Caliph, Hisham, effectively was just a figurehead. He had no real power or say. Almanzor's rule saw the continuation of the military reforms which were started by the exiled prince in the dawn of the Umayyad Emirate in Iberia. The system of tribal units was abolished, and Almanzor was able to use the rivalries between the ethnic Berbers, Arabs and Iberians to further increase his own power. Basically, he weakened everyone else so he could say as the most powerful man in the Caliphate. Almanzor can best be described as a man who wanted dominance. He wanted to rule. And fuck me, did he have the brains to make that happen. He acquired the support of religious authorities in the empire, and with the rivalry and the conflict with Aurora now done, he, yes, continued his predecessor's reforms in the military, and he also underwent multiple military campaigns in the deserts of North Africa and against the northern kingdoms, even completely stopping the Catholics' advance southwards, and making it so that he was deeply hated and feared in the region for his brutal attacks. Almanzor would die on the 9th of August in 1002 of an illness at the age of 65, and immediately upon his death, his son Al-Malik went back to Cordoba to take his position as the head of the government. On Almanzor's death, they wrote on his epitaph, "His exploits will teach you about him, as if you saw it with your own eyes. No one like him will ever be given by God to the world again, nor will anyone to defend the frontiers who compare with him." These verses can tell you so much of how they saw him, and again, how things were looking for the Reconquista at large, at least how his families and supporters saw him. He was an incredible man. He revitalized the army, put the Catholic kingdoms on the defense, and in so many ways, this man was actually another symbol of the Umayyad power, the strength these people could muster. Yet, his campaigns in the north caused untold horror for the population, and he was deeply hated by everyone up there. But at last divine piety took pity on such ruin and allowed Christians to lift their heads, because in the 13th year of his kingdom, after many and horrible massacres of Christians, he was taken away in Medina City, a great city, by the devil, who had possessed him in life and buried in hell. This last line is from a Christian source. Almanzor was also the man who completely upended the entire established political structure of the Caliphate. He imprisoned the strongest man in the empire and made himself the strongest one. But he died, and he was succeeded by Al-Malik, and the vultures perked their heads up. Al-Malik's reign was one of peace and prosperity. Frankly, there is not much that needs telling here, besides the fact that the people were angry that the Caliph wasn't the actual leader of the country. However, do remember that this is still a timeline I'm building here, so I gotta skip over some things and focus on the more important stuff that happened. God damn it. My beard's gonna grow back entirely once I'm done with the timeline. But anyways, Al-Malik also waged a bunch of successful battles against the northern kingdoms, beating up those filthy, icky Christians. He died rather young of an angina? What the fuck is that? I don't know. I looked at its Wikipedia page for like 5 seconds, and the drawn-on guy there looks like he's having a heart attack. So I don't know. I guess he died of a heart attack for fucking nerds or something. He died of a wannabe heart attack, and his brother Sensuel rose to power. Finally, we're back to Sensuel, but our story is far from done. We have the Civil War, which it's called the Fitna of Al-Andalus, the Taifa system, and beyond that, even the Almoravids and the Almohads. The Reconquista is a massive web of political intrigue, manipulation, drama, and epic conquests. I'm not done breaking all of this shit down, so let's talk about this first. This is the final chapter of the Umayyad Caliphate, the last breath of a dynasty long gone. It should be noted that Sensuel was a fair bit different from his brother and father. He was still a giant piece of shit and cruel like his father, but it's cruelty that extended to his own close family, to his direct family members. There's a story that apparently he poisoned his own brother. I'm not surprised on that fact, on that story, as there's also a story as when he was growing up, his father captured a bunch of rebel dudes near Pamplona, and he had them all executed. But he made his own son, Sensuel, execute one of them. That captive was Sensuel's uncle, and he was 12 at the time. Sensuel became the Hajib, or the administrator, as he was given the title by Hisham, and like his brother, he immediately faced opposition from the local Cordobans, who were fed up with this family's continued chokehold over the caliphate, and no one liked him. Muslim chroniclers at the time criticized him for his alcohol consumption, foolishness, and debauchery, all things that Muslim society doesn't like. And he made everything so much worse by making himself the heir to the caliphate. I mean, forget about the damned Ummayyads. My family is in charge. Why? Well, because I said so, that's why. No one liked this. Like, no one went down for this. And yet, the Caliph actually agreed to it. Hisham named Sensuel as his crown prince. The people became furious. And yet, He still had allies, notably from the well-paid Berber and Slavic armies in our Andalus. But anywho, let's say you're a sadistic man, hell-bent on becoming an emperor. Your daddy already did most of the work to put you in charge of your empire, but you want the actual title, somehow. And somehow, you get named an heir, but everyone fucking hates that. So, you, now being the heir, you decide to stay in your home and hide, that's option A, or option B, take measures to protect yourself and suppress any traitors and prevent them from taking your hard-stolen title. Or C, fuck off to the north to fight wars against Catholics. If you chose C, well, congratulations, you're a fucking idiot. His campaign was a bust. He ran back to Toledo, and there he learned of the disaster unfolding in Cordoba. Members of the Umayyad family stormed the palace and killed the governor he installed. This pushed the population to revolt, tired of years of dictatorship from Sanchuel's family. Hisham, the caliph, was pressured to abdicate, which, again, he did. And Muhammad, the former caliph's cousin, called Muhammad, was named the caliph. This new caliph named his own cousin as the Hajib and sent him with 7,000 soldiers to Sanchuel's family's main palace, which was guarded by their personal retainers, who all immediately gave up and surrendered. So, Sanchuel by now had begun a slow, painful march south to try and reassert control. He had his army with him, but another one, led by a rebellious Catholic count by the name of Garcia Gomez. Garcia tried to convince him to flee north to the Christian lands. However, Sanchuel wasn't having it. He was convinced that his presence near the city would convince his supporters to rise up. Yeah, I know. What supporters? While the caliph's cousin was busy making sure that Sanchuel's palace was just a pile of rubble, Muhammad himself, the caliph, consolidated his hold over the capital as he waited the inevitable return of Sanchuel. And where was he? Well, he was making sure his army was loyal to him. He stopped at Calatrava, literally testing the loyalty of his men, and even at that, failing. Several of them just refused to renew their oaths to him. So his army began to desert him, to the point that as he approached the capital, he had only Count Gomez's men in his own personal household with him as the army. Still, his march was nearing its end, and on the 3rd of March they reached Armirat, the last stop before the capital. The next day, before departing, they were set upon by horsemen, sent by the caliph. "Are you Al-Rahman, Sanchuel?" "I am. The true caliph Muhammad, in his wisdom, has summoned you to the palace, Sanchuel." "Do I have a choice?" "You can either come calmly or as a head. I assure you the great caliph has no preference." "Alright, I'll come willingly." "Smart one. I hope you're ready, Sanchuel, for the walk of shame you'll endure and the many sins your family has committed, which you will pay for." Sanchuel's army, now joined with this small host, met up with a much larger host led by the Hajib. They stopped halfway at an inn to rest. In the middle of the night, while in his room, Sanchuel pulled out a dagger. We don't know what his intention was, but we know that the Hajib caught him in time. "Really? What do you think you're gonna do with that now?" "I don't know. Sanchuel, the would-be caliph, son of Almanzor, that traitorous snake, reduced to an indecisive fool. The irony. My family, we did what we did for the good of the realm. The Catholics kept pushing south, and we all know the story of our Hakam, the man who would rather sit with his books than govern. And the answer to that was making yourselves the dictators? It doesn't matter. We've torn down your palace. We're tearing down all mentions of your family from the books. Sooner or later, your family will be nothing more than a distant memory. If you wanted to die, Sinchuelo, you could have just asked. What? Yeah, you know, the Caliph wanted to see you in person, but I don't think you'll mind if it's just your head. Is the Count still here? Yes. Kill him too. Sensuel ruled for about 4 months, and those were some of the most unstable the Empire had ever seen. And his death led directly to the collapse of the Umayyad Empire. With Muhammad's success in overthrowing Hisham and Sensuel, other Umayyad lords and governors were inspired to rebel. If it was that easy for Muhammad, surely it'd be the same for us, for the governors. This was the moment, the definitive moment in the peninsula, where the balance of power permanently shifted. I know I've said that a lot while teasing this event, but I cannot stress this enough. The Amrids family, the family of Almanzor, caused the end of the Caliphate, and made the Catholic powers as the superior group in Iberia. From this point on, the entirety of Al-Andalus descends into civil war, the likes of which it has never seen. Lasting from 1009 to 1031, it was a conflict known as the Fitna of Al-Andalus, and it led to the permanent dissolution of the Caliphate and the formation of dozens of Taifa kingdoms throughout Iberia. We have now entered the Taifa age. For 400 more years of content that we have to go through, and no one would ever rebuild the Caliphate. And the Catholic kingdoms would use this chaos and this unity to expand south at a speed never seen before. But that's a story for a different day. Thanks for watching.